Hey, welcome. How you guys doing? Let me know if you can hear me okay and see me, I guess is important as well. So we got Rambler and Andrew is here. Hey yo, what's up guys? Hope you guys are doing all right. I guess Saturday morning still where I am. I don't know where you guys are. Well, I know where Andrew is. Yeah, man. I always think I have enough time to get these streams up and running, but I always feel like I'm rushing at the last minute. So I never know what the hell is going on. What lens? Here, I can pull this up on screen potentially. There we go. What lens are you using for the stream? Looks so clear. So this is the Sony 35mm f1.8. It's just, it's just the relatively affordable. I don't know if it's really that affordable. Sony full frame f1.8. I like this one a lot. I actually got the G Master 35mm f1.4, and I ended up selling that one because this one is just like, I think it's better for video because it doesn't have any focus breathing, whereas the G Master focus breathes quite a lot. Other than that, the G Master is amazing, but that was kind of the big deal for me. All right, so hopefully it all looks and sounds okay. Welcome to the stream again. I'm going to take my headphones off because it sounds weird to me listening to that. So I don't know if you, I know Rambler was here last week, and if anyone else is here who was here last week, I'm probably going to repeat a little bit of what I got or what I went through. So sorry about that, but for everybody who wasn't here, just to kind of give you the rundown on what we're doing. Color grading. I am by no means like a professional, and not even like an advanced hobbyist. I also realized that like so much of what I do in color grading is completely reliant on Dehancer. And one of the points of the stream was to feature Dehancer, like I have the logo in the thumbnail. But I was trying to grade some of these clips last week that I got from Garrett, and without using Dehancer, and I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. So we're probably going to come back and do some Dehancering again. But I'm going to tackle a couple more clips from Garrett that I didn't get to last week. So I got this one, this little interview setup that he sent me, and then another clip from just looks like kind of a promo video. I'm not exactly sure, but I liked this one a lot. And then I got some clips. Let me just show you. So this is from Garrett Ware. He is a great YouTuber out of East Tennessee, I believe, and he covers a lot of stuff that I do, a lot of camera equipment and reviews, gear reviews, et cetera, et cetera. But he's a really cool guy, really nice. He was super enthusiastic and helpful when I reached out and asked for some footage from him. And yeah, so just wanted to highlight him. Definitely give him a subscribe if you are not already. And then I also reached out to Andrew Saracini, and he was gracious enough to send me over a really awesome, like completely edited sequence of footage. Yeah, so I could probably dine on this for a couple of live streams in the future. So way more than I can get into during one live stream. I'm gonna try to keep this to like an hour-ish. I feel like that's kind of the most energy that I can bring to a live stream. Yeah, and Andrew also just very similar to me and Garrett Ware in terms of like the kind of channels that we have, a lot of gear reviews, a lot of tutorials, sort of like, budget and kind of like small, professional videographer kind of lens that they're looking through in terms of the kind of content they're producing. So definitely give Andrew a follow, a subscribe as well. Okay, and so here is like this entire sequence that he sent me, which is, I guess, like kind of a behind-the-scenes fashion shoot. So I think he was doing the behind-the-scenes camera, and then I think this gentleman here is the photographer. But the footage is amazing, super well exposed. So I'm excited I haven't even like thought about like what I'm gonna do or how this footage is gonna look, but it looks great. Like it's gonna have so much flexibility to grade. Taking a look at, let me come back to the comments real quick. Rambler, I bought my camera a month ago. Feel free to repeat and explain the why for the newbies. Okay, thank you. What camera did you end up getting? I don't know that we talked about that. Okay, and also to repeat for the newbies and everybody else, my color grading, what I do in Resolve, because there's so many different ways that you can set up Resolve to work in your projects. So I'm just going to jump over to, oh, I wasn't even showing my screen. I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. I'm, like I said, I am probably not ready for this. Oh, this is what I needed to do. I'm an idiot. Okay, here we go. I'm not ready for this. I didn't have these up earlier. So this is Andrew. If you don't know him, this is his channel. I already kind of gave you the spiel, but here you can see it now. And then, of course, this is Garrett as well. All right, and then need to get my shit together. Rambler got the Sony a7 IV and the 16 to 35 G Master. Oh my God. The Grand Master. No, that's not right. The G, I can't think of anything. That's amazing. Yeah, the a7 IV, fantastic camera, fantastic hybrid camera. Yeah, definitely can't go wrong with that. And then the G Master, also amazing. I love 16 to 35. I don't have one currently. I've actually got the 10 to 20 APS-C lens, which is basically the full frame equivalent to a 16 to 35. But I used to have a Canon EF 16 to 35, and I loved that lens. So I definitely need to get another one eventually. All right, cool beans. So coming back to the project settings in Resolve. So if you come over to color management, I like to use DaVinci Resolve Color Managed. Because it takes care of like all of the conversions from log footage to Rec 709 behind the scenes. You don't have to do color space transforms. You don't have to deal with conversion LUTs. And I just find that it's like the easiest way, and also like it just gives you like fantastic results without having to really mess around. And then the color processing mode, I put it in DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. So this is the actual color space that you're working within in Resolve. And so it gives you like this massive color space. It's bigger than Ace's, I believe. Bigger than just about any camera profile. Like it's bigger than Airy and Red, the entire color space of those cameras. So it just gives you like all the flexibility. And then when I output, it just goes out to Rec 709. I'm using a Windows computer, so you can use Rec 709 Scene. You can use Gamma 2.4, Gamma 2.4, depending on where you anticipate your project going out to. I guess Scene is probably just more flexible. And then if you are using a Mac, you might want to use Rec 709-A. I'd love to learn how to do like HDR color grading, but you really need like an HDR monitor. I mean, you don't technically need one. I guess you can just rely on scopes if you want to, but I have an OLED TV, which is HDR, but I don't have anything to really, accurately grade with to do HDR. So that's why we're basically going from a massive HDR color space and then outputting down into Rec 709. Okay, so that's that. And what you can see also, so what happens when you are working within that color space is this is actually Blackmagic Pocket 6K ProRes 422, and this was automatically converted into Rec 709. So sometimes Resolve like recognizes the camera profile from the metadata, and it will go ahead and convert it. So I didn't have to do anything to this footage. This one is from the Lumix S5 Mark II, and you can see it's in Vlog. So this is still in log. And all you need to do to convert these is just find the clip, or you can highlight multiple clips that all come from the same camera, and then come down to input color space. And then you just find the camera brand, Panasonic, and then convert it to Rec 709, just like that. And then same thing with these. Andrew told me that these were from the Sony a7R V, I believe it is. So these are all in S-Log3. So I can just highlight all of the ones from him, right click on any of them, input color space, Sony. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. We'll get it together. We'll get it together. Okay, let me do that again. So sorry. Okay. Well, like I was saying, but not showing because I'm stupid. Thank you for telling me that you can't see the screen. I figured it out. But thanks. I'm an idiot. Yeah. So I was saying the footage from the Pocket 6K is already converted to Rec 709. It's already found it from the metadata and converted it to Rec 709. So even though this is shot in film log, I believe it's converted. This one from the Lumix S5 Mark II is in Vlog. It was not converted, but I did it off screen. So let me see. So what you would do is just find it in your media pool, come to input color space right here in the middle, and then you'd find the camera brand, and then you would find the color profile. And you could change them at anything. If you wanted to like work with like ARRI color space for all your cameras, you could just set it to ARRI log 3 or ARRI log 4, whatever you want it to do. You don't have to use the right camera brand, but I guess in terms of getting the most accurate results, that's what you would want to do. And then I would do the same thing for Andrew's clips. I'm just going to highlight all of them, right click, and come down to input color space, Sony S-Log3. And there you go, converts it to Rec 709. Perfect. Okay, yeah, and just saves you the hassle of doing all these color space transforms and saves you the hassle of using LUTs. All right, so jumping over into the color page, I think I'm going to start off with going back to Garrett's footage from last week. Open up all the scopes here. Turn that music off. You can see that? Everybody can see everything? Okay, cool. Usually, if you come up to the gallery viewer up here on the top left, you can have like all these. Well, if you right click on a clip in your viewer, you can hit grab still, and that'll create a little thumbnail. So as you're working in your project, you can use these to reference. So like we have this clip up here that we're working on, and if I want to compare it to this clip that I just grabbed the still from, I can hit this little comparison viewer, and that's like a cool way to like try to match shots and everything. And it's actually reflected in the scopes at the same time too. So you're actually seeing the luminance, saturation, and color value of both of these at the same time. You can see that as I wipe that across. So that's something cool you can do if you didn't know. But another thing you can do is save these stills that will carry through across all of your projects. So a still only lives within a particular project, but a power grade lives throughout your entire database. And another thing you can do with these thumbnails or these stills, whether it's a power grade or a still, is just copy the grade from it directly. So I have this one that's called template, and if I just middle mouse click on it, it just copies over this template onto the clip that I'm currently working on. And so nothing is happening here, like I haven't done anything. I've just created this basically skeleton that I can just start from. It's a starting point, essentially. Okay, I'm gonna close that down. Sweet, everybody can see the screen, thank you. All right, so I don't really have a plan for this clip in particular. I guess maybe we can just take a look at the scopes. It's all looking pretty good in terms of the balance. If you look at the parade, you know, the RGB is looking pretty balanced. And if you look at the vector scope, it's pretty nicely clustered around the middle. So you know that the white balance is pretty much correct. So I'm going to be a basic B and just grab Dehancer and throw it on there. Throw it on. Okay, and by default, Dehancer already applies some stuff. So it already applies a film emulation, and it goes to Kodak Vision 3 250D, and I'll just turn that off. And it also applies film grain, and I'll turn that off. And then otherwise, that is pretty much the clip without anything done to it. So now we can just start doing what we want to. Up here on the inputs, since I'm already working in DaVinci Wide Gamut, and since that's already been converted to Rec 709, I like to change mine to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. I think this looks better than using Rec 709. So, oh, I can show you that here. If I toggle that Kodak Vision 3 250D back on, that's what it looks like in DaVinci Wide Gamut, and that's what it looks like in Rec 709. So it's much more neutral and natural looking if you work in Wide Gamut, at least in terms of how these film emulations work. Okay, and then I'm also usually going to default to using one of the two print profiles. So they've got Fujifilm 3513, that's what that looks like, and they've got Kodak 2383, and that's what that looks like. If you disable the film emulation, the Kodak Vision 3 250D, that's what the 2383 looks like by itself, and that's what the Fujifilm 3513 looks like. So there's so many options. For a long time, I was basically just using Kodak 2383 without any film emulation, but now I've started using it on top of film emulation as well. So I don't know. A lot of times the daylight balanced ones, at least these motion picture films from Kodak Vision 3, the daylight balanced one, at least 250D, is very, very stylized. It's very blue, very green. So sometimes the tungsten ones, even though they're meant to be balanced for tungsten fixtures, they tend to be a little bit more neutral. So let's see, Aaron says, I think working in the DVR intermediate mode in Dehancer works better in a color managed project because the footage, yeah, actually, yeah, for sure. That should be the logical, workflow. If you are using DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, then it makes sense to change this to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. That was actually a recent addition to Dehancer. I can't remember if it was in Dehancer 7, because it used really all you had before was Rec 709 and Rec 2020. So this, in my opinion, is a big improvement to what was there before. I guess, which is why I think that's the only reason I mentioned the option of using Rec 709, because that used to be the only option that you had. Okay, so let's do this. Let's hang out with 500 tungsten. It just looks more neutral. Of course, you can do the push-pull and change it a little bit. I kind of like this. I honestly like it a little bit more blue-ish. And the scopes are still looking really good. You can see without that film emulation, with the Kodak 2383 applied, that it really pushes things. Kind of pushes them really up towards the top, like this window and the sunlight coming through and over here in the background. But when you add on this Kodak Vision 3, it squishes things back down, which I like. I have been really focusing on keeping my highlights within like kind of this 90 IRE level. Some things specular highlights can go beyond that, but I like to keep it kind of mushed down just for stylistic reasons. It doesn't have to be that way. And you can also see that it's already lifted our shadows a little bit, so nothing is really down here in the clipping point. So I think it's looking pretty good in terms of exposure. What you can do is the film compression, and that will smush it down even more. But you have, sometimes it can really compress the highlights and sort of like the tonal values on and other things in a way that might not look super great. So just kind of keep an eye on her cheeks here. So that's with that film compression off, and that's on. For this shot, I think it looks better without it. Of course, you can adjust how much it's applied as well. But I don't think we need it because we're already sitting right around where I want to be in terms of these highlights. And the film developer, this is another relatively new addition to Dehancer, and I like this one because it has this color boost slider, which allows you to add back in saturation, because a lot of these film emulations are really desaturated, and prior to that, there was no way to add in saturation within Dehancer. If you come down to the print tab, there is a saturation slider, but it's already maxed out. So this allows you to put some more saturation in, and that's just, whatever. If you want it to be saturated or unsaturated, of course, that's up to you. But I like to add a little bit more in. I feel like these days, especially for YouTube, having a little bit more saturation is probably okay. All right. And then coming back down to print, another favorite of mine is the color density slider. Just look at the blues back here on this carpet and just watch that really just get super, super rich. So I think that this really targets red, yellow, blue for the most part, and it doesn't really hit every hue in the spectrum. And it's not really the same as saturation. It just adds like this a really deep, rich value to the hues, which is very reminiscent of film. It's one of my favorite things in Dehancer that makes it actually a film emulation, aside from just like film grain and that kind of stuff. All right, so let's just turn this off. Whoops. So this is the starting point. This is just Rec 709, and this is Dehancer. I'm not sure, like, I'm kind of liking the overall sort of like contrast ratio in this shot. Like, you could do some power windows maybe to readjust the exposure on stuff, like maybe darken the background, but I think this is actually looking really good. You just have like a little pocket of light coming in through the window, but otherwise this is nicely like a few stops below her. And then, like I already talked about these windows, I think these are nice because they're living right here at about 90 IRE. I don't know, man. Sometimes a shot just doesn't need like to be overworked, I don't think. If you kind of nail it. You nail it in camera, then it doesn't take a whole lot to mess around with. You might want to just sort of make sure, like, I mean, it's really up to you, like things that are black, when you start adding these film emulations, it's definitely going to shift the shadows very blue, green, teal. So if you want to make sure that your shadows are black, then you can do that. But I think we're pretty much pretty neutral here. Like you can see that, like the mass of that is pretty much right in the middle. Excuse me. Maybe a little blue, but I think that looks okay. And then down here, maybe we could rebalance like the very, very darkest parts if you want them to be more neutral. So what I like to do, this is why I have like this big parallel cluster of nodes right at the beginning. I don't know if this is a smart way to do it, but just the way I do it. And I label them balance, highlights, and shadows. So for the shadows, I'll just come over to the wheels and then come to the log wheel. And then in the shadows, I'll just push in the opposite direction. And just looking down here at the very bottom of my waveform, once those like RGB are lined up and it becomes white, then you know that this is going to be pretty much black instead of like color cast. So if I toggle that off, it's going to be really hard to see. And that also changes a little bit. You can see that's with it off, and that's on, off, and on. And then you can adjust the range right here of where you want that adjustment to be targeted. So by default, with the log wheels, the shadows are essentially at 333 and below. So if you look over here on the on the parade or the waveform, we're really hitting everything below like this bottom, third. But if you want to lower that to maybe 256 or under, then the blue will start coming back in this part. But this will remain pretty much black. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the highlights too, if you wanted to balance the highlights, they're a little bit blue-green. You could do the same thing. You could just come up to the highlights and then just pull that in the opposite direction. But I really like the way that it's giving that cast, because it's that, you know, color contrast that makes the image pop. So I don't mind it. I kind of like this one. We could add, you know, we could keep going with Dehancer, adding halation, bloom, film grain, but I really kind of like where this image is right now. And we've got others to work on, so let's just move along. See what we got here. Okay, so this one should be interesting because we have much brighter windows. I don't know if there's going to be any information here to recover, but that's okay. I mean, I think we kind of, a lot of times we're a little bit overzealous when it comes to like saying you can't clip your highlights, you've got to protect the highlights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at a lot of movies throughout history, you'll see blown highlights. It's not even a big deal. Okay, so let's copy that over again. I apparently forgot to connect that when I made that template. Anybody have any questions? Does any of this make sense? Whoops. Okay. So we'll add our little Dehancer guy. Oh, shit. We'll add our Dehancer guy again. Wide gamut. We'll do, so there's Fuji and there's Kodak. I think Kodak looks a little more natural, at least with the Vision 3 250D. And by the way, there's like 60 something film emulations in here. Way too many. So I like to keep it sort of focused on the motion picture film emulations that they have, just to keep from having to go through 60 something profiles to find one that I like. So that would be the Fuji Eterna, and then the Reala 500D, and then you've got the Kodak Vision 3s. So those are all the motion picture ones, essentially. Oh, shoot. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just like, my brain is not in the game. I didn't mean to leave the text or the comment up that whole time. So let me take that opportunity to catch up real quick. Aaron is saying it's a new addition and it wasn't working great in color managed projects. You needed to put it at the end of the node tree after transforming to from log to X109. And can you remove the comments? Any chance we can see you make this next one with 2383, but very neutral in the middle with your white balance instead of the blue background? Okay. And can you clear the thirds? You're from Ontario. Welcome. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. We get a lot of Canadians down here visiting. I guess country music is big up there in Canada. I've never been to Canada myself. Seems like a great place that I might need to visit. Okay, let's see if I can remember. Man, I've got my Mac Mini as my streaming computer, and I have my little trackpad, which I'm trying to control OBS and the comments, and then my Windows computer over here. My brain is just not in fully functional mode. Okay, so the request was to make it neutral. Okay, I think maybe I can do that. I don't know. So 2383 is the print film that we're going to use. And you can make it more neutral by just not using a film emulation. So you can see that's shifting way towards cyan. And without one, the mass is much more balanced. So we can just try it that way, just without a film emulation. Okay. So let's go to the film compression. I think this is going to help us with this one. Pull down these highlights a lot. So we can set the white point. We'll probably just need to bring this as far down as we can. And just always keeping an eye on like her skin tone so it doesn't get too compressed and looking sort of like HDR iPhone footage. That's what you can see that kind of happening if you squish that tonal range a lot too. So maybe somewhere. Oh, let me turn off the film grain as well. Ding. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, I think whoops. I know what I'm doing. It's questionable. I just like Control Z that a bunch of times. There we go. I think that's where we were. There we go. I'm just going to come up to this exposure node and just see, like, let me just look at, I'm just pretty sure we don't have, well, shit, hold on. Hold on. So there is a lot of information out there in the sky, but it's obviously going to affect the exposure of her. So it's going to be a balancing act here. Maybe this would be like an opportunity to use the relight effect that I don't really know how to use very well. All right, so let's, I'm going to use, no, I'll just use one node and we'll come over to the HDR and, no, yeah, sure. We'll just pull the highlights down like 0.15, or the light down, and then maybe the highlights as well. Because we don't want it to get too squished on her face. We could also, this might be a good opportunity just to do a mask of the window. Let's see what this shot looks like if it moves. Yeah, we really could probably do a power window on that window. Power window the window. Or alternatively, we could use the magic mask on her to bring her up a little bit. Let's do that. Are you guys liking the magic mask? I feel like it's cheating for the most part. It takes 0 skill. Boom. Where are we at? Let's track this forward and back. Take a look at that. I don't know what's going on this bottom part. There's a little bit of the, all right, hold on. There we go. It's kind of messy at the bottom. I don't know if it'll really matter because we're just going to do kind of a soft re-exposure of her. And if it gets a little bit of this foreground, probably won't be a big deal. And I was saying last week, the footage that this from Garrett's, it looks freaking like, it looks weird. Not in a bad way. It looks so, it's just popping so much. Um, yeah, it's. Let me just come back to the magic mask later. Let's just balance this because that was the question. Can we keep this relatively neutral? Uh, how are we doing? How are we doing with the neutrality? Because there's really, it's going to be hard to tell. There's nothing that would be pure white in here, I don't think. I mean, I guess this fridge could potentially be pure white, but it's being hit by the sunlight. So if you're referencing this, um, but you might want it to be a little bit warmer, I guess. I don't know. No, that makes it too magenta. All right, let's go to highlights and come to the log wheels. So tell me, like, you can tell me since if you think, sorry, if you think this is balanced or not. I think it's pretty neutral. All right, so I'm going to come back to the magic mask and just raise her exposure just a little bit, like nothing crazy. Um, maybe we'll come to HDR and we'll do global and we'll just raise it up. Or not. Sometimes the magic mask just gets completely unmasked. So I think, is this a glitch? Have you guys experienced this? Like if you apply the magic mask and then you come to a node before, oh, maybe it's because it seems like it like disables it. Yeah, there it goes. You can see it is applied now. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, I don't know if that's a glitch. Maybe a half stop. I don't want it to look obvious. Yeah, I was asking Garrett last week, like, what lenses is he using? Because there's like so much like three dimensionality to his images, and I mean, it's the color, obviously, but even even the other images have just a really interesting some sort of like three-dimensional quality to them that I'm not sure what it is I'm seeing. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I think I'm pretty good with this one too. So what we did, I guess we brought back a lot of the exposure on the window. you can see, well, let me just turn everything off. So this is what we started with, and this is where we ended. Is she maybe she's too saturated. Maybe that's something else we can add to the magic mask. But maybe the whole thing is too saturated. Let's go to Dehancer. That's not enabled, so let's turn the global saturation down to, how about that? So there's 92 and 100 and 92. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Looks a little more natural. Another thing that you could probably do with this one on the magic mask, if you weren't 100% on her skin tones, maybe they're orange. Like if you wanted to isolate her skin tones without masking her, you'd have a really difficult time, because I think you'd be picking up a lot of the colors that are in the brick here, and even in the, whatever you call this stuff, in the windows. So with this magic mask, we could probably also maybe key out her skin a little bit too, if you wanted to. What time is it? Yeah, we're gonna move along. Moving along. How's everybody doing? How am I doing? I don't know. All right, so with these ones from Andrew, we have this massive sequence. I'm not even sure which clips I want to work on. But since they were kind of in this nice penthouse-y, or maybe like common area of this condo building, I mean, just imagine it's a condo building of some sort in some city, possibly Philadelphia. It got me thinking, let's see, which shot do I want to use? Is this making you dizzy? Sorry. Maybe that one. Maybe that one. I also like this one. I like the light on this one because it's like the sun is hitting him, kind of like this little slice right along his face. I just think it's an interesting composition. One of these might be a good one too. I don't know. There's too many choices. Too many damn choices. But like I was saying, I was thinking, because of the whole, like the setting of this one, it got me thinking of David Fincher's new film, The Killer. Has anybody watched this? It's crazy that like a new $150 million David Fincher movie just drops on Netflix in the middle of November without any fanfare. But yeah, this is very Fincherian in its look. It has a lot of like of the very green, and I think ochre. I think ochre is the right word, the right color to describe the color palette of a lot of Fincher shots. So I thought maybe we could use this as, very loose inspiration. Obviously, the vibe and the tone of this movie is not anything like what we have going on here, but it's like, kind of a jet-setting movie. It starts out in Paris, so it just kind of had me thinking it might be a good inspiration to very loosely just give us something to go on. Let me know how that sounds. Also, let me know if you watched The Killer and what you thought about it. I thought it was pretty entertaining, and maybe not top-notch Fincher, but definitely worth checking out. Super well made, of course. You wouldn't expect anything other than that. I don't know. Let's just grab this one. Let's just go with this. Um, that movie was shot primarily on the red, one of the new red cameras. I can't remember which one. The Red Dragon? No, that seems like an old one. Hold on. It doesn't really matter. But I like to come up to like IMDb and look at the tech specs just to find out. So yeah, the Red V Raptor, and although it's in an anamorphic aspect ratio, they did not shoot it on anamorphic lenses. They shot it on spherical lenses. They added in like anamorphic qualities in post production. Um, but oftentimes you'll find stuff about like, if it was printed on Kodak 2383, if it was shot on film, you'll find that kind of information in here. And sometimes I like to use that as a starting point, but they don't really tell you much other than D Cinema for like the printed film format here. Okay. Anyway, super long digression. Boop, 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 boop. Let me know also if anybody's interested in Film Convert Nitrate. I feel like that program has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. But prior to Dehancer, I feel like I saw a lot more about Film Convert. And I know it's still around, and I know they're still making new products. I know they had that whole camera matching thing come out recently. But I was thinking about maybe doing a comparison between Dehancer and Film Convert because I don't really know where Film Convert is right now. Like, is it like what are they doing? What are they doing? Okay, so we're going to add in our compression and bring these highlights down. I've had a lot of questions and a lot of confusion about working in DaVinci color management because the common workflow for people who are not using color management, if you're using CSTs, is to add the CST, like especially if you're going from log to Rec 709, add it at the end, and then do all of your adjustments underneath it. Because the thinking is that you're getting all of the latitude from working in the log footage if you do it underneath the CST. But obviously you can't do that if you're using color management because the CST is already applied before you get into, doing anything. But as you can see, you get all that information, So I think you can do the same thing if you're using CSTs. I don't think it really matters where you put the CST, as long as you're working within the right color space. If you're doing like these same kind of conversions, you can literally put them anywhere, I'm pretty sure, because obviously we have all of this latitude that's in the highlights that was already there, that's not lost because we did that Rec 709 conversion at the beginning. Am I still streaming? Is anybody out there? Is anybody listening? I like to, just have like a trailer or clips from something that you can reference for inspiration, and you can also reference the scopes. I think that's super helpful just to see, um, where how are they exposing or how are they, coloring their footage. I mean, this kind of stuff. I think a lot of people on YouTube would be hella concerned that this is clipping. We got to bring this down, but you can see that's gone. Um, Same thing with this tube here. They're not worried about that. But other movies, like contemporary movies like The Joker, I'm pretty sure they would not have clipped this. They would have made sure they captured all of that. So it's like there's really no one way to do it. And it's also interesting too, like if you pull in movies like, man, how underexposed is this shot? It's like all the way down here at the bottom. This movie's all over the place. But I think um, probably the overall vibe is leaning to underexposed because obviously we've got a bright daylight shot here and we're way down in terms of like the highlights, the overall. Let's get another daylight shot if there is one. Here we go. Okay, so we'll just kind of use this as reference in terms of exposure. So I'd say lifted shadows and compressed highlights. The question became, what shot was I even grading? We're getting close. Here we go. Right. So another thing within Dehancer, within the print tab, the analog range limiter will compress the highlights and lift the shadows. So it's kind of an easy one button click to bring everything up. And then the black point, I'm going to lift that up well above the 0 point. A little more neutral. We can definitely pull a good key off of her skin, I think, on this one. Oh, maybe not. Except her skin and her hair are the same color. Damn blonde people. Okay. Decent enough. If you wanted to just make sure you're not getting anything else. I just wanted to check and see what is going on with her skin. I'm going to crank up saturation. There's a lot of color. A lot of color going on here. Is that because of her makeup? I think that looks a little better, maybe. Whoa. I don't even remember this being this way. This is, I guess, this is the beginning, or this is the starting point of this image. Did we improve it or did we ruin it? And by we, I mean me. Okay. Well, the more I do this, the less I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to call it there. Let's see. Oh, you know what I can do? Just show these three. Okay, so these are the three that we did. Our interview shot and our little promo artist lady. No, maybe she's got a clipboard. I don't know what she's doing. And then our fashion model. There's our before and after, and after and before. And after and before. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, if anybody's still around, thank you so much for joining. I hope you got something out of that, or maybe at least some tools if you didn't know how some things worked. Why is this chat so hard to find? Let me just put this back in here real quick. Yeah, so my chat was like not updating. So I'm sorry I completely stopped interacting with the chat. I'm still learning how to incorporate the chat into my stream, and it just seemed like the chat just went away. So I thought everybody had just sort of left, and that's cool. I don't blame you. So let me just catch up on the chat. If you guys are still here, I guess outdoors in Ontario and Aaron, you guys know each other. Rambler says something looks good, and Rambler was asking about H.264 and H.265. Is there a setting for that? I'm not sure where you mean setting in camera or setting in Resolve. In Resolve, I guess maybe you mean like in the export, like if you are ready to export your project in the codec section, you've got H.264, H.265. That's one place. And then, of course, in camera, on your A7 IV, for instance, there are H.264 and H.265 options for for the codec that you shoot in as well. The XAVC HS is the H.265 codec. Okay, we were in Center City, Philly. I learned that Andrew and my wife's family are all South Jerseyans in the Philly metro area. It's a small world. I can't wait to get back up there. We haven't been up to South Jersey in a few years, I think since prior to COVID, so we're definitely overdue. Andrew was saying that he hasn't heard anything about Film Convert in a while, so yeah, kind of. Oh, and Andrew, you're using Dehancer. I didn't know you were a Dehancer guy. And she had a fair amount of makeup on. Cool. All right. I think we're caught up. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks to everybody who was here. Let me know. I don't know. Don't let me know anything because after this stream, you can go to my channel and the stream will be up under live. So if you have any comments, if there was anything in here that I didn't clarify or I didn't get to in an adequate way, leave a comment and then I can grab it in the next live stream. I was thinking about doing these weekly, but I honestly don't know enough about color grading that I don't feel like I have enough to do this on a weekly basis. So maybe it'll be a little bit less frequent than that. But again, just leave me some comments and I'll just take note of anything that you would like me to cover. If there's any tools, we did the magic mask a little bit. Even just if it's like, what's the difference between like the wheels, like the color wheels, the log wheels, and then working with the HDR palette, all that kind of stuff would be interesting to sort of keep up or to tackle. And it would help me to learn, to focus on what to learn too. Okay. Appreciate it. Hope you all have a good weekend.